You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Jedidiah. That is a badass name, good sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, were you named after the Bible?
Yes, I was. My parents, we're all four. I have 3 older brothers, and we're all J's, and we're all from the Bible.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Jed. What do you do professionally?
So I work at a glass company. I'm what you would call a glazier. I install and cut glass. I work for a little company here in the Pacific called Presley's Glass. We go around and we just we take out old windows that are fogged up or broken or whatever and put in new ones, or cut tabletops or mirrors and stuff like that. So I come home a lot of days with a ton of cuts and stuff on my hands. So
Yeah, that's got to be difficult because I remember I was installing insulation one time, and you get those, I forgot what the little particles are that come off the installation, but they get stuck into your hands, and then you go and touch something that feels like tiny little cuts into your fingers.
Yeah, it's like fiberglass type stuff. Yeah, but the glass is the same way. I mean, if you're working on a job and the glass breaks, you'll end up with little glass shavings on you. And if you go ahead and rub your arm and scrape it off, you'll just cut your arm up doing it. So you have to be super, super careful with that.
How'd you dive into this? Like, you didn't start off as a child being like, I want to work with glass.
No, I was working at a convenience store here called Quick Trip, and hated it. I mean, I just did not like doing it. And the church I was going to at the time, one of the guys that I hung out with a lot, he owns the company, and he was looking for a guy, and I was looking for a way to get out of doing what I was doing. So I was like, hey, yeah, I'm looking for a new job. He's like, well, I'll hire you. He goes, I know you well enough to know your work ethic, and you work hard. So I just put in my 2 weeks and started working there.
And I think the one thing that scares the crap out of me is when I was in the store the other day, and a kid that was a little bit younger than me, like, I'm in no way I still consider myself a kid, even though I want all the rights of an adult. But like At 21, this guy was like, paper or plastic, sir? And I was like, whoa.
Right.
That's a shocker. Like, I was like, when did that happen? I felt like I needed to pull out a cane.
I agree with you 100% on the kid thing, man. I'm 34 years old, and I'm still a big kid. I mean, I collect toys still and comic books and all that stuff. So I haven't grown up yet. So I mean, working with what I do, I run into people, and I always call people sir because of what I've done. And I got people that are in their 50s and 60s like, I'm not sir. So I get that aspect of that, man. Like, I understand that completely.
What are some of probably the most difficult things about your job?
It's very sensitive time-wise and other stuff. Like, so we have to get this done in a certain amount of time, glass-wise. And then the other aspect that's really, really sensitive is how breakable glass is and how much that can screw up. If a piece of glass breaks on you or something like that, it make it start off from square one again. And, like I said, that adds into your time.
I think one thing that really changed my mind on looking at like a window was the fact that glass is made from melted sand.
Right. I think that's crazy that you go to the ocean, you see all that sand, and then one day it could become glass. Like, that's crazy.
I'm from a beach town. My ocean is literally my front porch. So it's like, there's sand right there. I'm looking at it. I'm like, who the hell decided to burn this to a point where it turned into glass? Like, we've experienced, the weird thing is how sand is, okay? Yeah, we're going to dive into sand now. Okay, but like, the fact is, when it gets a little bit wet, it becomes harder than it was before sometimes.
Yeah.
It becomes really structured. Like, I remember burying my friend up to his neck in sand, and we just watched the water, like, kind of messing with him. And the tide came up, and he was screaming. We were torturing him. And it came up just a little bit below his mouth, and then it went back, and he was like, I can break out of this. And before, where he couldn't anymore. It sunk. It made it impacted down that he was literally stuck in there. We had to literally rip him out. And I'm like, man, there's some stuff on this earth you just can't explain.
Oh, there's a lot, man. I completely agree with that statement 100%. I mean, goes to show we know more about outer space than what's in our own oceans. And I mean, that's here. That's something we can go and visit. Anyone can.
Dude, not even our oceans. If you think the one thing we still don't understand that's closest to us, our brains.
Our mind. Yeah, that's a good point, man. That is, we know very little about the brain.
Like, why are kids obsessed with these cartoon remakes? Like, it seems like everything is getting thrown back. I've said this multiple times where society's kind of went the wrong way. Like, we're amazing with technology, sure. We take it a little too far, but on the concept of there were so many shows when I was a kid that I miss. I mean, that they do and remake it today, and it's just trash.
Yes, I completely agree with that 100%. I'm very much, and Brian and I have talked about it on our show. I love the originals and whatever, and very, very touchy about remakes on stuff. Like, so when they came back with the Rocco remake on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, I was really hesitant, but I was actually pleasantly surprised because they stuck to what the original was.
They did do it pretty well. And I'm not going to lie. I was very, very like, no, I know what they do. Yeah. They ruined Teen Titans. I can't watch that anymore.
Yeah.
I try and understand, like, I'm all about being as open-minded as possible, but I understand it's not for me anymore. You know what I mean? It's something, it's dived into a whole new realm. But like, I think a lot of people really get freaked out. Like, you're watching cartoons, those are for kids. I'm like, no, they're for everyone, you know?
Oh, and then you look at what we have now. There's so many cartoons that are geared towards just adults now because it's just people like them. I mean, you look at Family Guy, you look at South Park, you look at Bob's Burgers. I know a few kids that watch that, but most parents won't let them do it. But most of the people I know that watch them are our age. I mean, they're not little kids anymore.
The funny thing is they have joke references for parents in there that the kids don't pick up. I remember one specific one in general was the fact that it was Jimmy Neutron, and I was watching it with my dad because my dad always liked watching SpongeBob with me. And I realized like now that he liked watching it because they had jokes in there that were for adults that kids would not pick up. And I'm sitting there watching Jimmy Neutron, and the dad just goes, Jimmy, one day I sat on a banana. And after that, it changed my life. And I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, he sat on a banana. What an idiot. And then my dad just catches the slight gay reference. I'm like, that could not be played today. If someone said
not at all,
there would be like PETA, there'd be a million of all these anti-whatever coming out. And we took a turn for the worse when it comes to sensitivity.
Yeah, when you talk about that, I mean, that's straight up. I agree with you 100%. Everybody's too butthurt too easily, and I don't like it. Like, so what if you have a gay reference? So what if you have, certain racial aspects of it? Sometimes that will open up other people's eyes to other things. It's like, just because you don't agree with it, you're allowed to have that opinion. But me, I'm allowed to have my opinion and think it's okay as well. And you shouldn't hate me just because I have that opinion. And I don't like that about what's going on in our PC culture that we have now.
How did you decide to do a podcast on the 90s? Did you just feel like the older stuff was better than the trash that kind of gets played on now?
Yes. To be honest with you, yes. A lot of that is. So how it got started is when Brian's quite a bit younger than me. I used to work with his mom, and that's how we became friends. But we became friends because I walked on him. He was cartooning. He used to draw all the time, and he was really, really good. And so we started talking about cartoons, and he started talking about all these cartoons that I grew up with loving, like Rocco and Ren and Stimpy and all that stuff, and how much he loved them. And I was like, no way. There's no way this 13-year-old kid likes all the stuff that I liked when I was a kid. So we got to talking about stuff, and then I slowly realized, like, as I've gotten older, I've tried to watch newer cartoons, and they are nowhere near as good as. I mean, it's like they're playing the same thing over and over. It's the same plot line, same storylines, just different characters.
Well, it's an explosion. It's a fart joke. It's the stuff that didn't create a story. I think the most fascinating things about like older shows were that they taught lessons as well. As a kid, like I have ADHD, so I rarely sleep. Even now, I rarely sleep.
Yeah, I have ADD, so I know, I have insomnia, so I know what you're.
Yeah, same. And I'm like, it's it's weird because I would always be up at like 1:00 in the morning watching like Jetsons. My dad was a DJ. My dad worked in a broadcasting, like owns his own radio station. So he'd be coming home from a DJ gig at 2:00 in the morning and sit on the couch. And I just pop up next to him and just sit there like as a little kid watching the Jetsons, watching these types of things that kind of died off, at least in my era. And when I started hitting into the the new millennia and all that. And, it was interesting because you saw stuff like it said 2012, we were going to have flying cars. I don't see no fucking flying cars. It's 7 years past that. What happened? We were off.
Right. Yeah. Well, Dad, I completely agree with what you're saying. I mean, my dad kind of had the same thing. He was a DJ and all that stuff. So, but I mean, him and I used to sit and watch cartoons together. And it was the same thing. Like we'd watch, he loved Ren and Stimpy. He loved Animaniacs. He loved Pinky and the Brain. And we'd sit and watch together. And it's just, but back to what you're saying, like, it's true. They don't have it. We did an episode on X-Men, the Saturday morning cartoon, and how much that really was well ahead of its time because it was more like a soap opera for kids. And it taught you about illnesses. It brought up the aspect of AIDS, but it was through a mutant virus that they had. And it brought up race relations with non-mutants hating regular mutants and stuff like that. It had a purpose, a plot, and all that stuff. And yeah, like you said, nowadays it's more, let's see if we can just get a cheap laugh. It's like a fart or an explosion or this. And feels like it has no feeling anymore behind a lot of these cartoons.
What I think happened was back in the day, they weren't only creating a storyline that you would follow through the episode, but they would create a bond with the characters as well. And they would also teach lessons in them. I mean, I know so many of the cartoons back in the days, and we're going to list off examples, trust me. But that really screwed me up like for the rest of my life where I'm like, I need to make sure I don't do that. I need to make sure I don't do this. I need to make sure I don't act like this. But there's some shows that would never make it in culture today. One, for example, one of my all-time favorites, I want to make sure my kids grow up on, Johnny Bravo.
Yes. Yeah. And we're actually going to be doing a show on that soon. We've talked about it. But yeah, I remember you talking in the first episode you had about that. You're talking to your buddy about Johnny Bravo and how it would. But yeah, because he was a chauvinistic pig. He really was. But he
highlighted the best aspect that if you're a dick and you look like you got muscles and everything, you still can't get the chick. They're going to go after the beta male. And every day, hey, I'll suck some mama. Like doing that whole thing. Yeah. Like it was to create laughter, but it was to show kids, don't be an asshole to women. Don't be an asshole to people because it'll get you nowhere. As a kid, I took that. I was like, yeah, they don't like that. But then they hear all this stuff nowadays about people like, oh, women actually love assholes. They love it when a man's aggressive. Johnny Bravo taught me differently.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that statement 100%. I mean, it's straight up did teach you, treat women with respect and you'll get a girl. It's not like the alpha male is more of just, like you said, an asshole, dickhead, son of a bitch, and should be looked down on, not rise above to everybody else.
What was one, I guess, 90s show that you really found like probably your all-time favorite?
My all-time favorite is Rocko's Modern Life. And it was for a lot of different reasons. Like I love the characters, and then going into how you're talking about with making sure people fit in. It's the fact that Heifer's whole family was a pack of wolves, and they should have ate him, but they didn't because they fell in love with him and they loved him. They loved him despite the fact he wasn't one of them, and they brought him in and all that stuff. And then my other favorite character was Dr. Hutchinson, with the dentist with the two hook hands. That she had a disability, and she still was able to become a strong female doctor, dentist, even though she had disabilities. So it showed you that no matter who you were or what you did or what kind of background you came from, you could still become something. It didn't pigeonhole anybody.
It's like, first of all, like for someone that's adopted and to see that a kid is, or like look at Rocko's Modern Life, to see that a family is going to love him even though he looks different, that's very, very impactful. I mean, that's to let them know like your parents aren't just saying they love you just to kind of make you feel better. No, they actually care about you.
Yeah. And when it comes to that, like I've always lived by when it comes to adoption, like yeah, anybody can have a kid, but if you adopt somebody, you pick that kid. So that kid should know that out of all the kids in the world, that parent picked you. You know, they could have picked anybody else, but they picked you. And that to me says something in itself, you know.
And something, another good show that really was impactful, Hey Arnold. A lot of
Oh, I
people
love that show.
a lot of people take the whole farness of like, oh, hey, football head. I'm like, if you saw his best friend was of a different color, he was teaching you that it doesn't matter what color you are, but you can still connect with someone. It doesn't matter as long as you have the same interests. It's not about how different the person looks. That was impactful for back then when even still race was a huge thing. Like nowadays it's more protected, which is awesome. But it was like, that stuff that was needed back then at that time. People are like, whoa, he's friends with a black guy. It's like, who sees color anymore? They both like football. They both like playing.
Yeah, it should, and we shouldn't see color anymore. And I agree with that statement 100%. I mean, I grew up with a mom that when I lived out in the county, and so we had city kids that came to our school because of this DSEC program that we have. And if there's something going on at the school on the weekend that the city kids couldn't come to, my mom was like, hey, just come stay at our house. So growing up, I never saw color. Like it was, if you were cool with me, I was cool with you. We were friends. That was it. And then even going on with that, with Hey Arnold, the fact that all different races lived in that same house as Arnold, and they all got together every night to have dinner. It didn't matter who you were. You know, they always ate dinner together at that table because of, that's what they did. That was their thing. So
I've learned from some of the most like humbling things. Like I've been a minority. I'm a minority at work. I work at a hotel with like an all Latino housekeeping staff. And I know what it's like to have friends of a different color and then be let in to their household and be treated like one of them where their color is not a thing,
Yeah.
And it's hard for older generations to hear that. And it's like, there's a part and there's a barrier, and it's taken me forever at work to break past the race barrier, at least trying to connect with a Latino staff and people that are kind of discriminated against nowadays. And I'm like, we're people, they treat me like family. They take me in, when it's cold out, when it's wintertime, and I have nowhere, like no room to sit in, like they're cleaning a room. So they're in the heat. They'll bring me in or they'll let me sit in one of the checkouts and get warm, watch TV, relax. They'll come in and talk to me. I'm like, teach me things. Like, let me learn from your experiences as well. We're all sharing this earth together. We can take at least an hour just to talk, just to have a conversation without trying to promote something, without trying to get our own thing across. You don't know how many times like I try and get this podcast, just get people's experiences and just conversation. It's not an interview, but people think it's going to be like a quick 20-minute thing and they're gone. I'll drag your ass back in here because it's the concept of it. We need to understand one another. Too many people are
big time.
And
I agree with that 100%. You're on the right track with that one.
Now, what do you think about the show Rugrats?
I was a huge fan of it when I was a kid, but as I got older, when they started adding more and other characters, I kind of fell out of it. And I think it was because I was growing out of an age where there was it was cool to like a show about babies. Now, don't get me wrong, like the original, seasons from the early 90s, I absolutely love, and I'd still watch them to this day because they make me laugh. I think they're funny. But it just got a little weird, I guess, as they got older because of the fact, or as I got older because of the fact it wasn't the cool thing to be watching, which is stupid. Who cares what I watch? Then that's the other thing. It's the mindset of it. It's like, who cares that you're at home by yourself watching cartoons, no matter how old you are? Nobody, nothing that anybody says to you should really affect you that much that you stop doing something that you love. And I think that's ridiculous. But I was a huge fan of the Rugrats when I was younger. And as I've gotten older, I wasn't as much. Like, I'm getting back into it now as a nostalgia thing. I watched a couple episodes not too long ago. It's still funny. I still think it's hilarious. And
it made me question babies. It definitely did. Like I look at it a little bit different now. I'm like, they're fucking secret agents or doing some shit we don't know about.
Well, going with that, like, speaking of that, mine was Cats and Dogs, the movie Cats and Dogs.
best bet. Not even the movie. The show was amazing. Okay, Cat Dog.
Oh, Cat Dog, I loved.
Oh,
Yes.
you're talking about Rugrats, Cats and Dogs, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the movie that came out about cats and dogs, and remember they could talk and all that stuff. And they had to see.
Dude, you just hit me with a wave of nostalgia right there. I remember watching that movie over and over again. That's with Jeff Goldblum, right?
Yes, yeah. But ever since I said, I swear my dog can talk and he just refuses to talk to me.
Yeah.
So I sit down, like, I look at him like, yeah, I know you can talk to me, you just don't want to.
I know you're in a war with cats right now. I love that concept, the whole idea, like the dogs, they know, like they act like dogs around us, but they're really truly intelligent.
Yeah, and that's I know it's not true, but I just think it's hilarious, and so that's why I look at my dog all the time, like, just say something, man. I mean, I already know your secret. I saw the movie. Just say something.
Have you seen the movie Absolutely Anything on Netflix?
No, not yet.
The dude got these aliens grant him to be able to grant anything with this a swoosh of his hand, and he was like,
okay.
Dog was barking. He's like, God, can you shut up? I wish you would just say what you mean. And he goes like that, and the dog's like, outside, and then next thing all you hear is a knock on the door, and he goes, robber, run, and he's like, oh my God, stop talking. And he's like, it's like. I have a fascination, like when I look at my dog and I'm like staring at it in the eyes, I'm like, I know, like in its head, it's like, I want you to talk to me like a baby. Like, why do we choose to talk to them like children?
I think it's because we were trained to do it. I mean, you watch TV, everything, movies, everybody talks to their pet in a baby voice. And I just think it kind of becomes ingrained with everybody because of the fact that that's what they do. Everybody's like, oh, look at the puppy. That's what everybody does. So you just kind of go with it.
And inside that dog's mind, it's like, look, you asshole. I'm not
right.
I understand what you're saying to me. But it's like I talked to someone that was in a wheelchair, and I talked to him like, what's the one thing you get upset, like people just do stuff for you and you because they think you can't do it yourself? And he said, no. He goes, everybody talks to me like I'm a 2 years old or something. It's like, no, I'm not a fucking idiot. I just can't use my legs. And I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's
so condescending.
Yeah. Like so many times you walk up like, Jeff, do you need any? Jeff, hey, Jeff, do you need anything? And he's like, I'm not an idiot, asshole. I just can't use my legs. Like I'm still a person who can talk to me and have normal conversations. Like, yeah, why don't we do that with our dogs?
Yeah. And it's like people that are blind and you find that out that they're blind and people seem to talk louder to them. It's like they're not deaf; they're blind. They just can't see. They can hear you probably better than you think. But I've seen that. Like, oh, he's blind. Oh, let's speak. It's like, just be normal. Like, what is the deal? Like, just because somebody's different than you.
I tell them, I was like, I'm more than happy to help if they need it. But like my buddy, you know, he's basically blind. Like he literally can't see anything, and he sees like outlines kind of, and he'll reach for a drink and I'll just like without him, like he can't see. So I'll just grab the drink and I'll move it even farther away from him. And I'll just sit there and just joke with him. And he'll be like, all right, dude, I know you moved it. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, can you just give it back? I'm like, yeah. And I'll just move it back. Like it's something like that. Cause it makes him feel, he told me
like he's one of the guys.
Yeah. He told me one time, he's like, I really enjoy that you don't like treat me a lot differently. Like I walk around in public and people see me like with some dark sunglasses on or something. They just immediately think like I need to be helped everywhere. I need to find out how to work around the store. Like I'm like, no, man, like if you need help, I'm more than happy to help you. But if I'm not going to treat you as my friend and I'm going to give you sympathy, there's no point in me even hanging out with you because you probably get that enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like that goes now to like I've had issues lately. Like if I hold the door for somebody and like I can do that myself. I'm like, I'm just being polite. Like I know you have hands and you can open the door yourself. How about you get off your high horse and let somebody help you out as a human being? You
don't know the looks I get being my age and getting people like when I hold the door open for them, they just look at me like, what? Like, what is going on? Like they just saw a horror film. Their face goes and like, like, I'm just like, what? And they're like, you're holding the door open for me? I'm like, yeah. Like I'll
because you're a good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sit there and I'll wait for one of those older people just to walk all like the guy that's like kind of bent all over and just slowly shuffling along. And I'll sit there and I'll hold the door open and wait 10 minutes. I'll wait for him to get up to the door and he goes, well, thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome, sir. Have a wonderful day. And I always say that. And I stop people when I hold the door open and they just walk in, like older people. I'll be like, "Hey man, you're welcome." And they'll be like, they'll look at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to use manners. Let's bring that back. That'd be awesome."
It's very important. And that's something that I think it's more, I don't know if it's just everybody, but I know it's a big American thing. Our morals and manners have just gone downhill. Like, I'm the same way. I will hold the door. I will wait 5 minutes for some old lady or old man to come walk in. And I usually get a joke like, "Oh, you didn't have to wait that long. It's been like 20 years and stuff like that." I'm like, "No, it's fine. Like, I can take 5 minutes out of my day to hold the door for you because you've lived a life that I have no idea what it is, and the fact that you're that old and have gone through as much as you have, I'd actually like to sit down and talk to you sometime to figure out, your life story and see what's going on with you."
Oh, you talking about me?
No, I'm just talking about the old guys that I hold the doors for because they've lived a life and all that stuff.
Well, they're basically modern day history books. Like I found, like I can read pretty well, but my ADHD doesn't like that. So it's like the easiest way for me to be able to hear a history book about someone's life is to just listen to them, just have a conversation like this. And it's the best things because all you do is expand your own knowledge and everything of that sort. And like when it comes to the fact, like we're all turned into Angelica. We choose to put people down because they're different. We choose to put people down when we see them happy because we don't feel happy ourselves. There's a way of disconnect that people have hit in this life where it's like sometimes you need to watch an old show. You need to watch something that's maybe stupid, might be like childish, but it brings laughter, but it also teaches you why you're laughing. I found through podcasting, the easiest way for something to get through somebody's head is to use humor because you're laughing. You're like, wait a minute, that's true. He is right in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that 100%. And that's one of the reasons. Well, when Brian and I do our podcast, we try to make it as funny as possible because first of all, that's what we enjoy. We love just being goofy, making fun of each other and testing each other. That's just what we do. That's what our friendship has always been. But, I'm the same way. I learned best by listening. So like I started doing audiobooks now because I can sit and hear it and I can work while I'm listening to it. So that means both sides of my brain are going nuts at the same time, which is good. But I love sitting down and just listening to people talk. When I was in high school and I would actually hang out with like my neighbors and stuff that were in their 40s and stuff like that. And just listen to them talk and hear stories about, what it was like when they were kids and all the stuff that they used to do. And I found so much joy in doing that. Like, just take a second to learn about somebody.
I found one show, and I will admit to it, and I know everyone's going to hear it, and they're going to be like, wow, you're such a girl. I did like the Powder Puff Girls at one point. I was watching.
Oh yeah.
And I thought
we have an episode on that. So yeah, we love the Powder Puff Girls too.
Now, why do you think that was so strange as a show to watch? Only on the concept of it was based around girls. I think it showed, amazing women empowerment that, girls are just as strong as boys.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think it was geared to the fact that, because I don't really see it I personally don't see it as a girl show. I see it as a superhero show, which I don't think has a gender, whether it's guy or girl superhero. And that's what I saw it as. And I loved it for that aspect of it. But because they were so cute and in dresses and had bows and all that stuff, I think people thought it was supposed to be a superhero show geared towards girls. But I never got that out of it. I just thought it was a great superhero show. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, it's all made up anyway. So why does it matter if it has a gender to it, watching it? Why can't a girl watch Spider-Man and get as excited and whatever as someone like me watching Powder Puff Girls? It's not the same thing. We need to take the gender roles out of everything and just realize that it's somebody from somebody's imagination that just entertains us. And it shouldn't matter what gender is on the screen because it's not even real to begin with.
Well, once we compare differences, we stop looking at each other as people. We start analyzing each other. Like, what does this person have? What do I not have? We're in a society today. We're constantly measuring based on looks, based on these types of things, and everyone's afraid to be who they truly want to be. Which is why I started this thing. Like, we have something deep inside of us, each of us, that makes us supremely unique, but we don't ever let it show because of the fact it might be something someone might make fun of, or someone might be scared of, or someone might be sensitive to. I'm like, if it's not harming anybody, then what's wrong with it? If you love doing it, then do it.
Yeah, and you learned that at a young age, which is great for you. I mean, it took me a long time to realize that, and to get to the point in my head that who cares what other people think about what I do, or even me, period, because I am who I am. I'm a special individual, but guess what? We're all special individuals in our own way because we're here. And whether you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you're African, you're Russian, whatever, we're all the same. We're all just cells put together in a certain way that has a form of intelligence that's higher than 90%, 99% of the rest of the cells that are put together. And my cells are no more important than your cells, or your cells are no more important than the guy down the street that, so I think we need to stop seeing each other as different races, different genders, different ethnic groups, and just see each other as human beings.
Yeah,
people.
We definitely need to go back to a point where older shows come back. I think people need to start being taught life lessons again. Like, one show that really, really taught me life lessons, and to be a little bit afraid of the dark, but it doesn't matter how small you are, you can persevere, especially when it comes to family. Courage the Cowardly Dog, one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah, and that's Brian's favorite show, and I get that completely, because Courage, even though he was afraid of everything, he loved Muriel so much that he was willing to put his fear behind him to overcome what was ever going on to take care of Muriel.
And we all know that one freaking thing that scared the living crap out of us. I don't know if you know, but the episode Return the Slab with that ghost, where I was messed up for the next couple of days. All I was hearing was, "Return the slab."
Yeah.
And as a kid, I wouldn't use the vacuum because they had an episode where they all got sucked into a vacuum, and then it was like an amusement park in the vacuum. That messed me up for days. I was like, nah, I'm not going to use the vacuum at all. My mom's like, can you just clean up? I'm like, no, there's an amusement park in this thing filled with dust people. And she's like, what?
Yeah. I would say mine, fear one like that would have been Are You Afraid of the Dark? I loved that show.
What's that one?
It was a Nickelodeon. It was a live action show. It was actual kids, and they would tell ghost stories around a campfire. And so they would start out by the kids would be around the campfire, and then they would talk about what they're going to say, and then they would give the name of the title, and then it would go into the actual story. And it was always like, did you ever read Goosebumps or watch Goosebumps? It was like the Nickelodeon version of Goosebumps. So it was like a ghost stories like that. And there were some that were really, really actually super, super scary, like as far as the characters and stuff like that that nowadays, I don't even think they'd allow kids to watch on a network like that because of how gruesome and whatever some of them were. But in the 90s, I mean, it didn't totally scare me to where I get nightmares or anything, but it was creepy enough that it stuck with me. And like one of my favorite episodes is actually, it's so funny because I've been having the hardest time finding it on anything, but the main character's name was Jedidiah, which I thought was awesome because at the time I was a little kid, I had never met anybody else named Jedidiah. So I'm like, oh, I just have this really unique, weird name that nobody else has.
The 1500s to run into someone.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then, but it was about, and it was about a single parent who was trying to date and all that stuff, which my mom was a single parent. So I understood that, I related to that. But she ends up dating the neighbor, and the kid thinks that the neighbor is a werewolf. Well, it turns out the neighbor is a werewolf, but it's his twin brother, that's the werewolf and all this stuff. And he takes care of him and all this stuff. But it just, that in itself, like it creeped me out enough that it stuck with me, but it also brought me my love of werewolf movies and stuff like that, because I'm a huge fan of the werewolf genre now.
So you want to know how the werewolf was created real quick? So,
go ahead.
okay. So apparently our brain can't make monsters, can't make faces. What happens is we can't make a new face. So when you see something in a dream, you're like, whoa, where did I think of that? It's actually your brain taking bits and fragments of other things it saw. So the guy that created the werewolf, that whole idea, that came from like bears, wolves, all these things mashed into one and turned into this werewolf. So when you see a werewolf, that's not something like someone randomly was like, "This is what a werewolf is." No, it was like they took some things from nature, they took some things that were human, and their brain mashed it up in a dream and created this thing.
Yeah, I mean the brain does weird stuff because I know I've done a little bit of research on kind of how dreaming stuff, and so like let's say that you dream about somebody in your dream, but you've like I don't even know who this is or whatever. Well, at some point in your life, you've actually seen that person, and that's the only way that your brain can comprehend that face being in your dream. And I'm like sitting there going, so this could be some guy that I just glanced at for 2 seconds, and now he's popping up in my dream, and my brain remembers him that. Yeah.
I find it really weird that every time I dream, if like I do get a dream, it kind of seems like I don't really remember a whole lot of them. But like there's some that'll like wake me up and I'm like, whoa. But then there's like I think the most sleep I ever get's like 2 hours. So like if I get a deep sleep, like drool and all, like I get a dream and I'm telling you, man, like I wake up, I'm like, why is every time Morgan Freeman God?
yeah.
Like
it's because his voice.
He's narrating my whole dream.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting there like doing something. I love it when you're in a dream and then you can do lucid dreaming.
Yes.
I like people practice that. I'm like, I love it when I'm sitting there like in a nightmare or something when I was a kid and I just like realized it was a nightmare. I'm like, I'm gonna go fly out the window now and just freaking jump out the window.
Yeah, take off. My other ones that I like are when I wake up from a dream, but it was a really good one, and then you're like you pain yourself like get me back into it, and then you get back into it, and then you realize you're in the dream, and you do even more, even though you loved it.
Oh, you go nuts trying to fall back religiously into that. You like try and like set your body the way you were sleeping when you woke up. You try to get everything back in there, like. And I'm like, man, that's crazy because what I have a theory on dreaming. I kind of want you to listen to it and then give me your interpretation of it. So I'm open-minded as possible. I don't think this is real, but I think this would be pretty cool if it was. There's theories on alternate dimensions, people seeing like a spiritual plane, people seeing like these different alternate universes where instead of me talking to you right now, it's you talking to me. I'm wearing a Chiefs jersey and you're wearing a sweat jacket, like the whole complete reverse opposite, like slight details are a little bit off, like Rick and Morty episode with the parallel universe where everything was slightly to the left a little bit. I say when you do rapid eye movement while you sleep, it's when your eyes are shut and they're constantly moving around under the eyelids and everything. I think that's your brain looking for a doorway, like an alternate universe, which we consider a dream, which is like something our brain creates, but maybe we're slipping into like another dimension.
I could get behind that because I've had what you would call deja vu, what people call it, but I've had dreams that I've been in a certain spot at a certain time on a certain day in a certain situation months before it actually happened or years before it actually happened. Like I remember as a kid, I just dreamed about my mom and I went to a yard sale and the neighborhood the yard sale was in. And I remember stopping at the stop sign and then looking at her and saying something to her and then waking up. Well, it's like 3 years later, we're in that neighborhood, leaving that yard sale, stopping at that stop sign. And I look and I say exactly what I said to her in a dream. And I'm like, I dreamed that like 3 years ago. So I could kind of get behind that, the alternate universe, because maybe I was seeing into another part of, maybe there is another me on in another area. And I was looking into what he was seeing.
Now I'm not 100% believer in psychic abilities, but I podcast with people that do 100% believe in it and are surrounded by them. I do get deja vu a lot, even nowadays. Like there'll be something and like my cousin will be like, hey, did you? I'm like, no, I already know what you're going to say. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're going to say, and I say it exactly what he was going to say. He's like, how did you know that? I'm like, I've had this in a dream. Like, like my family knows if I start getting something like that, they're like, change what we're doing right now. If it's bad, like change it, just change it. What were you about to do? Well, I was about to crack open this drink. All right, don't do that. Go do something else. So I'm like, okay. And then it's a butterfly effect. It throws it off just a little bit. And Well, it's crazy because kids get it all the time, and it's supposed to be a type of developmental thing in your brain, but they haven't narrowed down the exact cause of what deja vu is. They just know that it stops around the ages of 14. It seems to happen like once a month kind of thing, and it's
Mhm.
supposed to be when your body hits a certain amount of REM sleep. And REM sleep's very, very difficult. It's when your body's the most like it's where it does its most repairs, and it's when you wake up and you're like, I think I slept for like 10 years, like, one of those
Yeah.
type. And we don't get that on an average basis because so many things have to be right going on in our brain. Like if you fall asleep a little upset or you fall asleep with something on your mind, that usually correlates to what's going to be your dream about. Kids that fall
Mhm.
asleep after watching a scary movie, that's all they're thinking about, so they end up having a nightmare. And it makes it difficult because now I feel like a lot of days we're constantly worried about showing ourselves that we don't even have dreams anymore. It's fading
Yeah.
off.
No, and I actually get more frustrated the nights that I sleep in the night, and I don't remember my dreams because I feel like I wasted that sleep. Because I enjoy my dreams. I enjoy being, even if they're scary or whatever. It does something to your in me at least. I feel like it does something to my endorphins that actually helps me sleep better and all that stuff.
It's like a mental and physical like reset. And it's crazy because if you look at dreams, they're basically your own Netflix. Like it's literally your
And then,
brain
yeah,
creating
yeah.
movies.
Yeah, and I mean I've had that happen. I've had made movies in my dream, like legit, and I've been on other TV shows and on this and on, and it's entertaining because you're sitting there. I've actually woken myself up laughing because what was going on in my dream was so funny that I woke up. And I'm like, I love those dreams because or laughing makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So when you're sleeping and you wake up laughing, obviously you're in a great mood then. So like I always try to find the funniest stuff in my dreams. So if I can wake up laughing, if I wake myself laughing, I'm okay with that completely.
The weirdest thing I think I've ever experienced while dreaming is I woke up and I went downstairs and got ready for work. And then I went I head into work. And then I woke up again and I was in my bed. Like I dreamt that I did all that, but it was so freaking real. And
Yes.
it's like,
Mhm.
that's where, you could chalk it up to the example in Wolverine Origins, the movie, where he's sleeping and he has a dream that he was in the war again. And he comes up and he's like screaming with claws out and the girl has cuts on her arm because she was sleeping
Yeah.
beside him and he like cut into the bed and everything because he was just freaked out. Our dreams are literally like they're practically real. Like that's what the basis of Nightmare on Elm Street was, that when you sleep and you were getting hurt in your sleep, something was hitting you through that wall, but you could grab him and then wake yourself up and then bring him into reality, into the what we call like existence. But I'm like, what's to say that dreaming is in existence?
Yeah. I could see what you're saying with that completely. I mean, who knows? I mean, this whole thing could be, and I've heard this. It's a theory, but this whole thing could be just a giant computer game that we're in,
The
or
freaking
something like that. Yeah, the Matrix, or
if the
it,
life
it
is the Matrix right now, I'd rather be in a damn cartoon.
right. Me too. I agree with that 100%. That'd be so much fun to be in a cartoon. I would love to be a cartoon.
Which cartoon would you want to be if you had to model your kind of life off one?
Oh, truthfully, if I could, and this is a recent cartoon. It's one of the few new cartoons that I actually enjoy. I would love to be in Gravity Falls, just because of the stuff. I don't know if you've watched it or not. It's kind of a paranormal, cryptozoology, whatever, but it's really fun. Like they live in this middle of nowhere. They're at a camp, or not a camp, but a museum that their uncle owns and whatever, and their parents shipped them off for the summer, and all this weird stuff just happens. And I just being a part of that, having that weird stuff happen, and being able to go search for stuff and just have free range to go do whatever, like that. I would love to have that aspect of it. I mean, to not be tied down with work every day, to be able to go on adventures and stuff like that. I would love to have something like that.
If I was going to pick a show to model my life after, I guess, or be like me in person, I would probably have to go with the alpha side of me, only on the concept that I want my kind of life and kind of body to be like Johnny Bravo. But, that's coming from the fitness side of me. I'm a bit of a fitness freak. But when it comes to like the simplicity and kind of enjoying life, I would definitely pick Ed, Edd n Eddy, because that show made me laugh more than anything. I would love the simplicity of Ed not having a damn care in the world. Like I remember one episode where he was bathing in gravy, and then there was one. He's like, Ed, come on, we're gonna bust you out of here. He goes, I told you I'm grounded, and they're like, Ed, where are your stairs? He goes, guys, I told you I'm grounded. And Double D's just like, that's disturbing. And I'm like, I didn't get that as a kid. And the next thing I know, I'm watching it now, and I just start laughing. I'm like, holy shit, that's some twisted stuff.
Yeah, he's so grounded he can't even leave. Period.
Literally. And he lived in the basement.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then, but I mean, there's a lot like that other thing, going back to a little bit on cartoons and stuff. Like I've fallen in love with like looking into the theories of cartoons. Have you looked into any of those?
The Purgatory of Ed, Edd n Eddy.
Ed, Edd n Eddy, the drug-induced memories of Angelica for Rugrats. Hey Arnold is his grandparents are actually his parents, and his head is shaped like a football because he's got a disability. I mean, and there's a bunch of them. I mean, I have gotten really into that aspect of looking at, because I guarantee you none of them are true, and even if they were, I doubt that any of the writers or whatever would ever admit to it because they're kids shows. But just to think that somebody thought of that coming from something that was an innocent little kid's cartoon to Angelica was a drug addict and she, murdered Chucky, and she
it brings mystery to the show. This is why people are fascinated with Bigfoot and cryptozoology. You don't want to think life is as what you see it as. You want to see it as this magical belief. And I did not mean to quote one of those Disney shows, Wizards of Waverly Place. I did like it, but I only liked it because of the people that were on it. I thought some of the ones, Selena Gomez and the mom for sure, was definitely hot.
So yes, I agree with you 100%.
That's around the time I was experiencing my maturity days, and hint, hint. And but like when we look at shows, like, all right, I know for a fact you had probably a snack or a little thing you would sit and you would eat while you watched your favorite cartoons. Please enlighten me on what it was.
My big thing was always cereal. No matter what time of the day it was, me and even my brothers, we would always sit in front of the TV watching and eating a bowl of cereal. Whether we have milk on it or not, we'd eat it out of the box. We'd eat it in a bowl. We'd eat it with a spoon with milk. But cereal was our big thing. And it was usually, we shopped at Aldi or like the discount stores and stuff like that. So it was never like Lucky Charms. It was like Magic Stars.
That multi-meal.
Yeah.
Frosted
but we always had that stuff.
Frosted Spooners or shredded wheat bites. I'm like, what the fuck? We can't afford freaking the one cereal I would get very upset about if my parents could not actually afford it. And I actually have a good little story about this. It's Honey Smacks.
Oh, I love Honey Smacks.
I have not bought Honey Smacks in years, and I bought it, I think it was like last year when we had a salmonella poisoning with Honey Smacks where they took them all off the shelves. Yeah. I did not know that, and I bought the box 2 days before that outbreak, and I was getting mad sick. Like, I mean, bad. Like, I mean, I probably had salmonella poisoning. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, why can't I get another box of Honey Smacks? I only have like a little bit left. I want to stock up again. Because I think $5 for a box of cereal, that's the one that does not get discounted as Honey Smacks. So I'm like, if I'm spending $5, I'm eating the freaking box. Yeah. Salmonella poisoning comes out, and my mom goes, that's why you're getting sick. You're basically poisoning yourself with cereal right now. I'm like, look, if I'm dying by Honey Smacks, I'm dying by Honey Smacks. That's the way to go, because I spent $5 and I'm eating every last damn bite. She's like, even if it makes you sick, and as she's saying, I'm just grabbing a handful of Honey Smacks. Like, even if it makes me sick. Mic drop and I'm out.
Yeah. Mine right now, like my big one is Fruity Pebbles. And it can't be any generic Fruity Pebbles. It's got to be the legit Fruity Pebbles. I would kill a bowl of those. I do the man bowl. I get the biggest bowl I got.
A salad
pour the whole box. Yeah. Pour the whole box in there and a half a gallon of milk and just start eating it.
What the fuck is a serving size? I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. I pour into
A whole
the
box, right? Isn't that the serving size? A whole box?
Now, are you one of those guys that pour the milk in first and then pour the cereal?
No.
Okay, those guys.
No, I do cereal first.
How much?
Right?
You don't know how much milk you're gonna need.
Yeah, because then you don't have enough room for the cereal if you put the milk in first.
Well, my breakfast, like all right, so did you stick on mainly cartoons or did you stick on anything from the 90s?
We do anything from the 90s.
I would watch, I remember if I was not going to choose cereal, but if I was, it would be like Frosted Flakes or like Mini or Honey Smacks. And then if it was not cereal, I would do a bagel with butter, put it in the microwave for about 20 seconds, and I would sit down and watch Fresh Prince right in the morning.
There you go. Yeah, that was a good show. That one. See, my big show that I always had to watch was Home Improvement. I loved that show. Yeah. So, and I mean, I feel like I was the same age as the youngest son, so I felt like I grew up with them. So I love that aspect of it. And then our big thing was Friday nights. So we were obsessed with TGI Friday with like Step by Step and Family Matters. And the best one of all time was Boy Meets World, which I had a huge crush on Topanga. And so that was my Wizards of Waverly Place. That was my experimental age, was Topanga.
Yeah, have you seen the Wayne's World movie?
Yes. Oh yeah.
All right, you know the part where they're doing the advertising in the video, like, we don't need sponsorships. And as he does it, he pulls open a box of Pizza Hut and he eats it and he smiles. And then the one goes, yeah, we don't need branding. And he's like kicked back with his arms behind his head and he's got freaking Nike apparel on.
Or Nidus, or whatever.
And then he goes, man, this conversation about sponsorships is giving me a headache. And he's like, why don't you try Ibatol or whatever? And then dumps a freaking headache pill. He goes, and drowsiness with only, and they limit the side effects. I'm like, this is the best thing I have ever seen of subtle advertisement ever.
Well, and that was another thing about cartoons back in the 90s, and that's what we're talking about. When it comes to Saturday mornings, it wasn't just the cartoons. It was the advertisements. They had some of the best advertisements for stuff. Like, we've actually talked about it a little bit on the show, but like for like the Tamagotchi toy, like, was a little girl playing with this pet egg, and she's got a pet goldfish, and the goldfish is bitching about the fact she's not paying any attention to him. And he's like, I'm real. I'm alive. I like food. I like you. And she's like, oh, he's growing bigger. He's like, I guess I just can't compete with a Tamagotchi. And then like the Super Soaker commercial where these kids weren't allowed to go to the swimming party because they weren't rich and whatever. So they sneak in with these Super Soakers to this fancy pool party and start squirting everybody with Super Soakers. And so that was as much as it was when it came to the cartoons were great, but the advertisement was even great. So it was a golden age of cartoons / commercials. Because I know there's been better cartoons in the past, like you're talking about with the Jetsons and the Flintstones and Johnny Quest and stuff like that. Those are all great cartoons.
Brought all that stuff back.
Yeah, but like as far as advertisement and cartoons, I think the 90s is where it's at. And then, of course, the reason that all stopped was because Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, they were playing cartoons all day long. So they didn't need a Saturday morning cartoon anymore. So that's kind of how that all ended.
My little cousin doesn't understand that a lot of the shows that were back in the day are getting remade now. So he thinks a lot of them are new. And he's like, bro, and he's wearing a Goku t-shirt, like the Kami House thing. And I'm like, I'm looking at him. He's like, did you know, dude, in the last episode, Goku died? I'm like, Goku's died 1,000 freaking times, and they keep bringing him back with the Dragon Balls. He's like, how did you know? I was like, dude, I was there in the original. I remember waking up in the morning, and this is what we're talking about, non-breakfast food, maybe a bagel, but I would do this awesome combination. You take one piece of bread and another piece of bread. You have them flat on a plate. You put cheese, a little slice of cheese on one side, slice of cheese on the other side. You put pepperoni all in that sucker. You mash it together, throw it in the microwave 20 seconds, yo.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It was God. I'm like, my mom's like, you've had like 12 of those. That's all you've eaten for like the past week. I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you're not having any bathroom problems? I'm like, no, I take it where it stands. I'm going to suffer and I enjoy my snack. So leave me alone and let me watch my cartoons. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. And it's true. Like with that Dragon Ball Z, I remember watching that very first episode of Dragon Ball Z when Goku was just a baby running around with his little wiener hanging out and a tail.
Freaking
So
Bulma.
like, yeah, he's
What got
died
me
like
hooked on
5
that
times.
show. Bulma got me hooked. I was watching Bulma and I was like, oh, and she just got hotter through the years. When she got older and became a mom and everything, I was like, yo, she's still rocking it. Vegeta looks the exact same, but she's like trying hard. And I'm like, man, Bulma, if only you were real.
That's the funny thing. It's like talking about cartoon females and stuff like that. We've talked about it on our podcast quite a bit about who we thought cartoon wise was hot and stuff like that. It's like, it's a cartoon, like, but still, it's like the way they made them, they were attractive. They made them physically attractive so that our brains look at it and think, oh, that's an attractive girl, even though it's a cartoon.
Yeah, and you're a kid and you're like, why is this happening to me right now? Why am I feeling uncomfortable and feeling all these weird emotions? And you're like, oh, wait a minute, because it's their formative moments in your years. Like obviously, you know, that's what people get obsessed with nowadays, where that's all they focus on is anime type of porn or something. But I'm like, no,
Yeah.
if you truly look at it, like there are these things, like you don't realize how impactful cartoons are to a kid's mind. Like you say cartoons are going to ruin your brain. I'm like, no, sometimes they taught you things. Like I learned that, like, you know, Ed, Edd n Eddy, being in a community of other kids playing around, that's what you wanted to go experience too. But, you know, having moments like watching Drake and Josh with my brother and then watching them age as I aged, and then like them still like nowadays cracking like an Instagram joke like, you know, Crazy Steve, like, you know, like, you ate my enchilada. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that made me want to go to movie theaters, and that made me want to work at a movie theater. I have a couple of friends that started working at movie theaters because they thought that's what it was like having fun like that. And it's like, there are things that cartoons do to your brain that you don't realize, like subliminally, that change the way you know, evolve into the world today. I think if you live a life without cartoons, you live a life just hatred and all this stuff without anything funny in it, you become a really hurt and broken down person. And
Yes.
it's you sometimes you need to sit and laugh and realize that, like, you know, that was SNL back in the day, was the Amanda Show, was those types of cartoons, you know, those were.
Yeah, all that and Amanda Show. Yeah.
And I'm like, it was literally like, whose line is it anyway? Like, I remember watching that. That was my parents' generation. Colin Mockery, dude. Ryan Stiles, Drew Carey. It's like, that was your guys' little SNL type thing back in the day. Then there was SNL. But this was ours. This was ours. It was
Yeah.
for us.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, even with that, before that a little bit, even though it was a cartoon one, there was Kablam that was kind of like an SNL, because there's always different cartoons going on or different stories or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I loved. I was. It was so funny because back in the '90s, Comedy Central used to only play pretty much 5 shows, and one was SNL, one was Whose Line Is It Anyway, one was. The Kids in the Hall, and they were all like sketch comedy shows and stuff like that. And now what, you know, and then they would always have like the stand-up comedians come on and do like an hour-long show or whatever. But yeah. When they came out with all that and like the Amanda Show, I felt like, here they're making an SNL for us, for the kids, you know, because we don't always get all the jokes that were on SNL when we were kids because they're adult jokes. You know, you laugh at the crude stuff and the, you know, the fart jokes and the whatever, but at the same time, like with the Amanda Show, you got everything that was going on because it was you, like it was what you were doing.
Yeah, there's just, I think we do need to take a step back and realize some of these beautiful things. I definitely think like Invader Zim, you know, they just came out with the movie on Netflix. They did that pretty right in a way, but it's like, you can't bring it back and then expect to like bring it, like just redo it. You have to adapt
Yeah.
it to the new thing. And when I mean adapt it, I mean you have to be like, there was a gap period and now like everything realizes, like Invader Zim, the best way they did it in the new Netflix, I don't know if you've seen it, but they didn't
Yeah, I
pick
haven't
up
watched it yet.
they didn't just like redo the whole thing over again, like from episode 1, like this is Zim. They didn't do any of that. No, they picked it up where they left off. They picked it up
And
like,
that's perfect. Yeah.
and it brought you back in. It let the people that were originally watching it be like, oh shit, I get to see the last episodes that I didn't get to see when they canceled it. And then it's like, then that's going to teach younger kids to go back and find out the before information. You know what I mean? It's going to open up to both audiences and not just be narrowed down to the newer ones.
I think the best show that did that, and I was upset when they canceled the remake of it, was Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World, because what they did is it ended with Corey and Topanga moving to New York. Well, it picks up there when they're with their daughter, but it still is geared towards I think they really wanted to bring in the fans of Boy Meets World. So there was a lot of Sean and Eric, the brother, shows up, and the parents show up, and Mr. Feeney shows up, and all these other characters from Boy Meets World came in to be on the show, and they were on there quite a bit. It wasn't just, oh, we're just going to show up once, and that's it. But when I watched it, I'm watching this Girl Meets World going, I could easily sit down, and if I had a kid, watch this with them and say, well, you want to know what's funny? We'll go back and watch Boy Meets World from when I was a kid, and you'll see how everything started and how it got to this point. So I think that was and then they turn around and cancel it. Even though it has really good reviews and stuff like that, they cancel it because I don't know why. But I think they did it the right way when it came to it, because it wasn't just about the girl the young daughter. It wasn't just about her. It was about the whole family, which allows you to sit down with your kid and be like, okay, yeah, I can tell you why Sean and Corey are this way if we go back and watch this show. And then that just opens up that generation to Boy Meets World, which I think is one of the best 90s live action shows there is.
I definitely think if I had to say anything about what needs to happen for societies, I think we need to take a look back at some of the stuff and not redo it, but just pick up where we left off, because there's a lot of things we just left unfinished. Leonardo da Vinci said it best, that art is never finished, just left undone. He believed you can constantly make works on anything, adjustments. He never completed anything for the same reason that he feel like he could come back a year and add something to it. You can do that in your life as well. And I want to definitely give you here a minute at the end of this just to be able to plug your podcast and plug in your Brian, who's going to be on the podcast hopefully tomorrow. And I want to make sure that people can find your awesome content, man, because this is awesome. I do enjoy some of your episodes for sure.
Oh, well, we appreciate you listening. And like I said, I've enjoyed listening to you guys. I love being on your show. This was fantastic. I think you're very open-minded and you're very willing to talk to anybody about anything. I think that's great, especially somebody your age to be willing to do that. So keep pushing, brother. We'll promote you on our podcast too. It's the 90s Guyz podcast. You can find us on all the social media, all the podcast things like iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that stuff, on YouTube as well. And then all our socials are the 90s Guyz Podcast. And just so you guys know, the Guyz is with a Z, not with an S. Somebody already had the S one, so we have to take the Z one. But just come check us out.
They're cooler. They're with the Z. It's like the guy.
Yeah, there we go.
It's the opposite of the guy graduation that has the Z for last name. So you're just sitting there waiting for that one dude to be called. Like, who's the last name with the Z? No, they're the cool Z.
Yeah, we're the cool Z. So check us out. We talk about movies, cartoons, TV shows, toys, anything from the 90s that we want to talk about. It's just me and my buddy Brian making fun of each other, playing games and talking about stuff. And like I said, man, I've enjoyed being on your podcast. It's been great. This has been a great conversation.
I'm glad you said conversation, because I hate when people think it's going to be an interview, because I'm like, we're going to go off on some stuff.
Oh no, this is not an interview. This was give and take, back and forth, which in all accounts is, in my book, is a conversation. So if you ever want me to come back on, I'd be more than happy to. I enjoyed this. So.
I definitely want to help you guys out if you guys need a guest or something, or just someone to shoot the shit about cartoons. Because, dude, I got some hurt feelings a little bit on some cartoons. Let me tell you something.
Oh yeah, we'll have to have you come on, and we'll probably we record out of a radio station right now because Brian does that, and so we'll probably do a phone interview with you and whatever, have you come on. I'm sure Brian, just ask Brian about it. He'll talk to you about that for sure. And get some times down. So, but yeah, dude, I enjoyed this so much, man. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And for anybody out there listening, there's only one thing you can take away, which would be 90 shows are awesome, and you're not cool unless you have a library card.